Something artificial, it was reported yesterday, spoke directly to living brain tissue. This wasn't through surgery or some bulky implant, but through a thin, flexible strip of printed electronics. Graphene and molybdenum disulfide laid down like ink onto polymer. And when it fired, nearby mouse neurons responded as if the signal came from inside the body, as if it belonged there. Obviously, that huge moment matters, but it's even more consequential when considered next to other stories showing a shift already underway, where bodies reveal what they can tolerate, institutions begin to absorb what they once rejected, and machines start doing the heaviest work on Earth without combustion at all. So let's stay with this story first, because the Northwestern research published in Nature Nanotechnology is one of those findings where the technical details matter as much as the headlines do. Mark Hersum's team built artificial neurons, printed them using an aerosol jet printer, the same class of tool that you'd use for printing electronics onto circuit boards. And they deposited nanoscale flakes of molybdenum disulfide and graphene onto flexible polymer surfaces. And these little devices produced electrical signals that mimic the full vocabulary of biological neural communication. Single spikes, continuous firing, bursting patterns, the whole range. And then they put them next to slices of living mouse brain tissue. The biological neurons responded, fired back, treated those synthetic signals as if they came from the organism itself. Now here's the even more clever part. Previous researchers working with these inks had a problem. Polymer residue left over from manufacturing messed up the electrical performance, so they'd strip it out. But Hersum's team did the opposite. They partially decomposed it, and that created a narrow conductive filament that concentrates current into a tight channel, producing the sudden voltage spike that looks like a neuron firing. They turned a manufacturing flaw into the core mechanism. Now, why does this matter for you? Because the brain runs on roughly 20 watts. Your laptop runs on 65. A data center GPU runs on 700. The brain is 5 orders of magnitude more energy efficient than digital computing. That's 100,000 times. If you can build hardware that biological tissue recognizes and responds to, you're not just making better brain implants, though that's huge for anyone who might one day need a prosthetic that restores hearing or vision or movement. You're opening a path to computing architectures that work like brains work. And the energy math alone on that means the entire intelligence era changes. The April 7th edition of the Century Report tracked extreme environment memory stores. Remember this. Chips that compute through physics rather than digital switching. That was brain-inspired hardware. Now what Hersum's team demonstrated is brain-integrated hardware. So the gap between inspired by biology and participating in biology got measurably smaller with yesterday's report. And that gap is where the next generation of neuroscience, prosthetics, and computing architectures all will live. Okay, let's shift away. I want to move to a finding that shares something deep with that neuron story, even though it comes from transplant medicine this time. A clinical trial out of the University of Pittsburgh published in Nature Communications. The setup: 13 liver transplant recipients received an infusion of their donor's regulatory dendritic cells before surgery. Those are immune cells whose job it is to signal other immune cells to stand down, to teach the immune system that this is safe, leave it alone. Of those 13, 8 showed strong enough immune tolerance after 1 year to attempt weaning off anti-rejection drugs. And 3 of those 8 stopped immunosuppressants entirely for an average of 3 years with stable health, no drugs, and no rejection. Now you might be thinking, 3 out of 13, that's a tiny number. And that's fair, but lead author Abhinav Humar described it as getting on base, not a home run, but consider the baseline. Currently, somewhere between 13 and 16% of liver recipients eventually achieve drug-free tolerance on their own through slow, unpredictable, natural immune adaptation. This therapy pushed the rate to 37.5% in the weaning group. That more than doubled it, and the team is already iterating, adjusting the initial drug protocols and the timing of the cell infusion. If you've ever known someone who's had an organ transplant, you know what their life looks like afterward. Daily immunosuppressants, forever. increased infection risk, higher cancer rates, kidney damage from the drugs themselves. The medications that keep the transplant alive slowly damage everything else. The idea that you could train the immune system to accept a new organ the way it accepts its own tissue, that's not incremental. That is a different category of medicine. And it connects to a pattern that the Century Report has been tracking. April 17th, FGF21, reversing obesity through a hindbrain circuit that nobody knew even existed. Senescent macrophage clearance, reversing fatty liver disease without dietary change. In each case, the body already had the machinery to produce the outcome the doctors wanted. The breakthrough wasn't inventing something new. It was learning how to engage with what was already there. The regulatory dendritic cells aren't synthetic. They come from the donor. The immune tolerance mechanism, therefore, isn't artificial. It's the same process that the body uses to prevent autoimmune disease. Researchers just figured out how to trigger it deliberately at the right moment and in the right context. Okay, let's shift again from biological tolerance to institutional tolerance. And I mean that almost literally. An executive order signed yesterday directed the FDA to expedite review of psychedelics that already carry breakthrough therapy designations. 3 priority review vouchers for serotonin 2A agonists are expected next week. $50 million in federal research funding. Right to try access pathways for ibogaine. And this is the structural part here. Instructions to the DEA and the DOJ to begin rescheduling reviews very quickly after successful phase 3 trials. The Century Report has tracked this arc since February. These single-dose depression results. Compass Pathways Phase 3 psilocybin data, the largest psychedelic neuroimaging meta-analysis back on April 8th. 500-plus brain scans showing psilocybin, LSD, DMT, mescaline, and ayahuasca all producing the same therapeutic brain signature despite being completely different chemicals. Clinical headwinds where placebo effect muddied results. Now, all of that evidence was accumulating against a regulatory wall built decades ago when these substances were classified as Schedule I, meaning, by definition, no currently accepted medical use. But yesterday, that wall moved. FDA Commissioner Marty Makary confirmed decisions on the priority reviews are expected by summer. Compass Pathways CEO Kabir Nath and Definium CEO Rob Barrow both emphasized that scientific rigor for approval remains unchanged. The evidentiary bar isn't dropping, but what's changing is the bureaucratic timeline between evidence and access. And NIH Director Jay Bhattacharya struck a cautionary note. Quote, "We have to figure out the right way to administer it, that it's safe, that we don't just take it for granted that we already know everything." Close the quote there. So that tension is real, and it's important to remember. These compounds produce 80 to 90% reductions in depression and anxiety symptoms in special operations veterans. But they also require careful clinical settings and trained facilitators. Speed of access and quality of administration, those aren't the same thing. But what I find genuinely striking is the structural observation. Psychedelics have been generating clinical results for years. The regulatory system was built to exclude this entire category of evidence, and the pressure from accumulating data, combined with political will, just forced that system to metabolize what it had been designed to reject. Now, this is structurally parallel to the transplant story. The body already had the tolerance mechanism. The regular system already had the approval pathway. In both cases, the barrier wasn't capability. It was the architecture built around an earlier set of assumptions. And in both cases, yesterday, those assumptions cracked. All right, let me take you to India, to a mine, where a 650-ton excavator just stopped burning diesel. Lloyds Metals and Energy completed the first in-house conversion of a Liebherr R996 mining excavator from diesel to fully electric operation. 650 tons. That's roughly the weight of a loaded 747. And the critical detail, Lloyds did this themselves. Not Liebherr, which has its own conversion program. The mining company's own engineers redesigned the power architecture, the control systems, the safety infrastructure. They framed the project explicitly as supporting India's Make in India manufacturing initiative, which we've covered before. The operator became the technology provider. That's a fundamentally different dynamic than waiting for the equipment manufacturer to offer an electric option on their timeline. ID Tech X estimates that a single 150-ton haul truck burns over $850,000 in fuel per year. A 650-ton excavator's fuel bill is proportionally larger. When renewable electricity replaces purchased diesel, that electric conversion isn't an environmental gesture. That's a huge cost reduction, and it's a cost reduction that compounds. Diesel prices fluctuate. Electricity from your own solar or wind installation gets cheaper over time as you pay down the capital. The math only moves in one direction, and this sits alongside what happened in the UK yesterday as well. Auto Trader data confirmed the average new EV now costs £785 less than the average new petrol car. Brand new EVs available for about £15,000, roughly $20,000. The UK met its 2026 EV sales target a year early, with no special tariffs on Chinese EVs, just open competition driving prices down. Meanwhile, JinkoSolar published 3 papers in a single month in Nature Energy, documenting perovskite-silicon tandem solar cells hitting 32.76% certified efficiency on industrial-scale substrates. That distinction, industrial substrates, not laboratory samples, is huge. Lab records don't power anything. Cells manufactured on the same production lines that already make conventional panels, that is the bridge between scientific achievement and actual electricity generation. The Century Report has tracked this accumulation across weeks. Volvo's serial production of electric haul trucks on April 12th, Fortescue's 2-gigawatt island renewable grid for mining on April 13th. Each one makes the fossil fuel path incrementally more expensive on its own terms, not because of regulation or moral pressure, but because the physics and the economics of electric motors and falling renewable costs have altered the calculation. A 650-ton machine in India, a 15,000-pound car in the UK, a 32.76% efficient solar cell in a factory, different scales, different continents, same trajectory. Let's talk about a few notable releases from yesterday. Cloudflare open-sourced Unweight. This is a lossless compression system that shrinks your LLM model sizes by up to 22% without changing a single output. So if you're running models locally, that's real VRAM back in your pocket. Google DeepMind released Gemini Robotics ER 1.6, their latest embodied AI model. Better spatial reasoning, better physical world interaction for robots. Given what we covered about Pi 0.7 2 days ago, the robotics intelligence space, it's getting crowded, fast. And Tesla expanded its robotaxi service to both Dallas and Houston, they've announced. Though Electrek noted that the geofences are really small, and Tesla didn't disclose fleet sizes or whether safety monitors are still in the vehicles. A printed circuit fired and a living neuron answered. A donor's immune cells taught a recipient's body to accept a new organ without drugs. An institutional framework built to exclude psychedelics, bent to absorb the evidence it could no longer ignore. A mining company in India rewired its own 650-ton machine. What connects all of this isn't a theme that I'm going to just name for you. No, this is a quality. Something becoming available that was always possible, but never activated. In a brain slice, in an immune system, in a regulatory pathway, in a diesel excavator. The capability was latent. The trigger is new. Very soon, watch for whether those 3 priority review vouchers for psychedelic therapies actually arrive next week as promised, because the speed between that executive order and those decisions will tell us whether institutional acceleration is real or rhetorical. Watch for the next tandem solar cell number, because 32.76% on industrial substrates means the ceiling is still rising. And pay attention to what happens when someone prints the next generation of Hersam's artificial neurons, not onto a mouse brain slice in a lab, but onto something designed to go inside a living person. See you tomorrow.